Call the meeting in order, please. Take the roll.
Mayor Zakowski.
Here.
Alderman Kittle.
Here.
Alderman Vreeze.
Here.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Here.
Alderman Gartner.
Here.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Montello.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved. No public comments. One we're going to have, we'll just do when that issue comes up in the agenda here. Hear a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
You missed adoption of the agenda.
I have that Craig Kittle made the adoption of
Craig
the
did.
agenda and Tom Weinmeier seconded.
Okay, my bad.
Okay.
Old business, forms of government.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This topic was on our agenda at the last regular meeting in July. We also discussed it at our June work session. At the July 14th regular meeting, the City Council voted 4-3 to keep the existing mayor-council form of government. At that time, alderpersons Kittle, Gartner, and Weinmeier voted in favor of the motion. So if you recall, we actually had a tie vote, and then the mayor cast the tie-breaking vote in favor of the motion. It was requested by an alderperson to have this item brought back. Any member of the body can ask for something to come back to be on the agenda, and for possible further discussion or to potentially reconsider the previous action taken. In terms of possible action tonight, one option would be to take no action at all, to stand by the decision that you took at last month's meeting. If someone would like to rescind the previous action taken last month, they can make a motion to do so. If that motion were to carry, that would essentially strike the action taken last month, and then someone could make a new motion to conduct a public hearing at the September meeting, which was what was discussed last month. Another option would be to postpone discussion until a future meeting. So happy to answer any questions. The purpose for tonight's conversation wasn't to necessarily get into the differences or the pros or cons between the forms of government, but really to see if there was interest in revisiting this topic and potentially going a different route, or if you wanted to stand by the action that was taken last month. So,
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we move, a motion to rescind the previous action taken at the July 14th meeting regarding the form of government.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Call for the question.
Take the roll, please.
Alderman Kittle.
No.
Alderman Vreeze.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Gartner.
No.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Montello.
Yes.
The July 14th regarding the form of government is rescinded.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we move ahead with scheduling a public hearing at the September regular council meeting relative to the form of government.
I'll second.
Discussion. Take the roll, please.
Alderman Vreeze.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Gartner.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
No.
Motion passes. Next item, new business, request to release deed restrictions. Pofolk, is that right, correct? Pofolk Ridge.
So I'm going to give some background information about this item, and included in your packet there's a couple of PowerPoint slides just so some visuals that I wanted to show that I think would help both the members of the council and those in the audience just to understand this a little better. But I'll start just with some background information. But But Michelle, if you want to go ahead and scroll to those slides, I'll reference them here in a couple of minutes. But in 2007, the city of Richmond approved an extraterritorial jurisdiction plat for property located in the town of Aaron Prairie. Now, some people might think, well, why does the city approve plats or CSMs when it's not in the city? Well, with extraterritorial jurisdiction, at that time, any subdivision or CSM would have to be approved by both the city and the town within 1.5 miles of the city limits at that time. And when our population increased to 10,000, that 1.5 mile radius became 3 miles. So from time to time, these have come before the Plan Commission or City Council. And over the years, the city's authority has also changed based on case law, based on state statute changes. So when it comes to zoning issues, that's something that years ago the city actually had more authority than what it does today. So now when we have a plat or a CSM that comes forward, our scope of review is pretty limited. However, years ago, the city could look at issues like density, public improvements, water and sewer connections versus private well and septic. Some cities would actually look at their comprehensive plan and they would say, well, if we want to discourage rural residential development on the periphery of the city limits, they would update their comprehensive plan to not allow any residential development at all. So some of those things aren't allowed today, just as the law has changed or as the courts have ruled on various issues. But today we still have extraterritorial jurisdiction. And if you recall, we have a boundary agreement with Star Prairie. That's our only neighboring municipality with which we currently have a boundary agreement. So in terms of the approval of the Pofolk Ridge plat, and you'll see on the map here, this was the original plat that was approved in 2007. At that time, the plat created a total of 14 lots and 1 outlot. At that time, there was a minimum lot size of 3 acres. And you can see that it's hard to read the table at that size, but the size for all of those acres, for all of those parcels is less than 3 acres. And so at that time, the city did approve the plat. However, there were restrictions or conditions of that approval. And that really gets on to the next slide, where, and essentially you can kind of view this somewhat as of a compromise, if you will, to say, we're gonna allow these smaller lots to be platted. However, there has to be common ownership between some of them. So you can see, I've just color coded this just for simplicity, but to say that, you know, if you own the yellow parcels or the green parcels, you know, you could build a house on one of them, but that ownership has to stay the same. So you couldn't sell off the empty lot next to you until the time that water and sewer are available, and the zoning ordinances allow for that lot size. And so essentially, this allowed smaller lots to be platted, which otherwise would not be permitted because they're less than that 3 acres. However, really until that water and sewer was made available, that neighborhood really continues to keep that rural character, and when you drive through, it looks like these larger lots, but knowing that someday that may be in the city limits, it may have water and sewer, and so there may be more houses and more development in there someday than what you see today. And so if you want to go ahead to the next slide. So the deed restrictions that were put in place at that time so that the lot combinations cannot be split, individual lots cannot be sold, mortgaged, or conveyed. And that restriction was to be in effect until such time that the entire subdivision was served by public water and sewer, and when the applicable zoning ordinances allowed the lot sizes as shown. Now the restriction doesn't say whether that's it just is the applicable zoning ordinance. So again, currently that falls under the county's requirements, but again, someday if that were in the city, then it would fall under the city zoning requirements. So today that development is not currently served by municipal water and sewer. Today for St. Croix County, the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres. So it was 3 acres, but again, over time, updates to the county and zoning ordinances, just like we update ours from time to time. So I think in 2007, it was referred to as ag res. Some of that terminology changes. And again, minimum lot sizes can change from time to time as the county updates those things. The deed restriction itself can only be released or modified with approval from the city of New Richmond. That's just some of the background on it. And then if you want to go to the next. So then in 2025, a developer owned what is kind of shown in that purple color at the top. So if you recall previously in what you saw, there were smaller parcels shown on there. Those lots were reconfigured to have two larger lots, one that's a little over 5 acres and one that's over a little of 2 acres. Now, if you're adjusting lot lines or, in this case, going from multiple lots and reducing the quantity, those actions don't require approval from the city or the county. So if somebody wants to, let's say you want to buy some of your neighbor's backyard, right? You could coordinate that between the two of you. You're not creating a new lot, right? You're just changing the boundaries. There might be 2 parcels today. You change it, now one of the parcels a little smaller, a little larger. That doesn't go to the Plan Commission or the City Council or the County Board. It still gets recorded with the Register of Deeds office, but it doesn't require formal approval from the bodies. It's really only when you're creating a new lot. So in this case, to go from multiple lots to these 2 larger ones really isn't the issue. The issue comes into the ownership, which we'll talk about here, and again with the deed restriction. So again, any of those other parcels in this development or any other parcel for that matter in the city, typically unless there's an easement changing or there's a driveway issue, unless you're creating a new lot or increasing the number of lots thereof, those don't come to the city for approval. So earlier this year, the developer did show this concept to city staff and county staff just in regards to what was that, again, going from multiple lots to creating those 2 larger lots. And it was recorded with the Register of Deeds office. Now, the new CSM does not reference the lot combination requirements, which was a requirement of the original plat. So when you look at the original plat for the subdivision, you'll see right on there that it references the lot combinations that remain in effect. On the new CSM, that is not reflected. And then the numbering also, now it's just lot 1 and lot 2, which again, previously that would have been, I think, lots 10 through 14. So there are some changes that were made to the new CSM versus what was done in 2007. So this issue really came to our attention actually by the title company earlier this summer as they were doing the title search. And so when we look at CSMs, city staff, county staff aren't doing full title searches on properties. And so when they look at this and they say, okay, you have this many parcels, you're moving the lot lines, you're reducing the number of parcels, you're not creating a new lot, that's not something that comes to the body. Really, it's in this case, when the developer is looking to sell one of those lots where the deed restrictions come into play. And again, this goes back to 2007, so many of you in this body and many of our staff and the county staff were not here, and without that restriction being noted on the plat, they wouldn't know that there were deed restrictions here. The request for your consideration tonight from the developer is to release the lot 1 and lot 2, so those purple parcels, from the deed restrictions. So that would allow lot 1 and lot 2 could be sold in the future to different owners. And so again, the deed restriction today doesn't prevent the sale of the property, but with the deed restriction in place, a prospective buyer would have to purchase the entire, all of the purple area shown here on the screen. Where if that deed restriction went away, lot 1 could be owned by someone different than the owner of lot 2. And the restrictions would still remain in effect for what's shown on the screen as the blue, yellow, green. And so lot 1 and lot 2 both exceed the minimum lot size for the county. So they both are larger than the 1.5. None of those other parcels shown on the map are larger than that. So a few considerations for you to consider tonight. And when you look at the request from the developer, an argument could be made that both those purple lots are larger than the minimum lot size for the county, and that the developer should be able to sell those separately, and if they choose to develop on them, that they would do so under the rules of Aaron Prairie Township and in St. Croix County. Another argument could be made that, you know, here we are 18 years later, there still isn't municipal water and sewer in that area. And we're a little over a mile away currently from the current existing infrastructure. So an argument could be made that depending on the rate of growth in the city, it could be a long time before water and sewer are ever available out there. Some other things for you to consider tonight, you know, one is that, you know, the developer was aware and agreed to those deed restrictions in 2007. And the city council felt that it was important to have those deed restrictions in place in 2007. And there hasn't necessarily been a significant change really to what's there. And that, you know, looking at just from the eyes of the city of what is the benefit to the city of making that change, and there may not be one. It may be a benefit more for in this case, for the developer. There could be a concern about just setting precedent. You know, if you modify the deed restrictions for these two lots, could some of the other property owners ask for the same thing? Or if the city entered into similar agreements elsewhere in some of the surrounding townships, again, do you start to set a precedent where none of those deed restrictions are actively going to be enforced? You know, so if the council tonight said, well, let's, you know, eliminate the deed restrictions altogether for that entire development, you know, in theory, all of those lots could be sold to different owners, and then those property owners could apply to the county to develop on them, even though municipal water and sewer are not available. Another potential concern really comes down to more of a jurisdictional issue. So, you know, as I alluded to earlier, today, based on case law, based on state statute, when it comes to a city's involvement in zoning issues in the township, we're very limited. And so, you know, something like this, if this was proposed today, the city wouldn't be entering into agreements such as this. And we don't have a boundary agreement with the town of Star Prairie. Or I'm sorry, we have one with the town of Star Prairie, but not with the town of Aaron Prairie. And so when we look at this area, if we go back now and start potentially amending or eliminating these, indirectly, the consequences are relating to zoning, because you're addressing issues relating to density, questions about should this be a private drive, should it be a public street, the size of the lots. Those are things that really start to be that gray area of, are those really more zoning issues that should really be determined by the town or the county. And to think that, you know, this action that you would potentially take tonight doesn't require approval from either of those bodies. So if you were to say, let's get rid of the deed restrictions altogether in this development, there isn't any Urban Reserve Commission, there isn't any agreement with the town of Aaron Prairie that allows us to influence maybe more of zoning related issues. That maybe we had the ability to do that back in 2007, but now today, are you indirectly, again, maybe overstepping or overreaching? So those are just some of the issues, again, that I want to bring to your attention. This isn't an easy decision in the sense that a lot of you weren't here in 2007, myself included. You know, you're going back to, again, requirements were different in 2007 than they are today. But really the question is, how do we move forward, and what do we think is the best long-term interest, not just today, but long-term, and you know, are we supportive of making the change, or do we have concerns where we would say, let's keep the restrictions in place? So that's just a broad overview. I'm happy to answer questions, and then I know we have a couple individuals to speak to.
Mr. Mayor, I
so.
think we're going to get into some deep discussion, and I know we have some speakers coming. In order to move forward with this, I'd like to get a motion on the floor, discuss it. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the request. and I have several questions, but
I've got a question right away. Can we put restrictions on this piece of property? Because the restrictions, let's say we take those
Mayor,
restrictions.
you have a motion on the floor?
We're in discussion now.
Discussion, yeah. You approved it and it was second. Anyways, can we put restrictions? Because I heard there's a question about the city might be out there in 25, 30 years. It's a mile from here. Since there's restrictions, we take those off, but restrictions, once the city is out there, they have to hook up the city sewer and water. And I'm assuming the landowner would have to agree to that restriction because he agreed. So can we do that? Put that restriction on there, drop these restrictions, because this is one of the concerns. The city moves out there and we don't have, control of actually having city water there. But if we put a restriction on there, when that comes into the city, they have to hook up the city sewer and water. We do with other properties right now. And another thing is I'm looking at, right now, like Noah said, we have no control over that. That was something in 2007. So I mean, are we doing something that isn't necessary? But again, can we put restrictions on there that they have to hook up to city sewer and water? Because that seems like that's the big issue to me.
You want to answer that first, or?
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, no, I mean,
yeah, I wasn't sure if you're directed to me or to Nick, but,
Dan? Maybe Ray
and I think that's where again, this is an agreement between, the city and the developer at this time. That it's not that the city has the ability to enforce the agreement, the city can update the agreement. Now, as I mentioned, just in terms of some of those potential concerns, though, is that if you start modifying some of these agreements, are we potentially overstepping what our authority really is in that area? If somebody came forward today with a new plat, such as in this case, we wouldn't be able to put
we have no
restrictions like
authority.
that.
Right,
in.
exactly. State
in-
took that away. And that's what I'm saying right now. I just want the question answered that if the city moves out there someday, we can put a restriction on there that they have to hook up the city sewer and water. There's a restriction on there right now. So can we put that restriction on there if he agrees to it?
Let's be clear for a second, though. It's not the city moving in that direction. It would be an application.
Nick, you should
That's
move
what I
closer to
heard.
your microphone.
It's not the city moving that direction. It would be an application to annex into the city, right? And so when you ask the question about hooking up, obviously we have requirements under our ordinances regarding connections to municipal utilities. And in addition, when other larger properties petition to come in, it's generally a requirement, right, that utilities extend out through those properties. So it's a little bit different than what you're being asked to do here. You're being asked on kind of a one-off here to remove some restrictions that were part of the original approval, whereas the question of hookup in the future, that would be a part of any consideration for annexation into the city, would in all likelihood be required hookup to city utilities.
We're not allowed to make annexation a condition of approval of a plat either, right? So if there's another development proposed in the township, we can't say, well, we'll approve the plat, but sign this agreement that says someday you'll annex in. Like, we're not allowed to do that.
No, I'm not asking that
But
question at
we,
all.
but
I'm
we
saying
won't
if-
make
if-
water and sewer available unless they're in the city. So,
That's my question. 25 years from now, was the issue that I heard, that the city could be out there and they wouldn't have to hook up the city sewer and water.
But, Jim, I think that might be true, except that they're not in the city, and I don't think you can force anybody to be in city.
I'm not forcing them to be in the city. What
No,
I'm
no,
saying is,
no, but you
once they
can't,
come
but-
in,
But there's no reason they would have to come into the city. If we
once they
take
don't come in,
these-
there's no problem.
Well, if we take these deeds off, they're gonna resell some of those lots. Their own septic systems, and they're never gonna come into the city. So there's no way we can attach something to the deed that says that if cities where our water are out there, they have to hook up. That's only if they come into the city.
Robin can agree to that restriction.
That he's gonna come into the city?
No, that he'll, anybody who owns that piece of property will have that restriction. Hook up the city's sewer and water. Why
Yes,
can't Robin do that on his
That would be a
own
legal
property?
question. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I
That's my
don't,
question. Can Robin do that?
Well, actually, let me just offer this. The deed restriction is on all the land, all the colors, and what you're talking about just involves magenta. I will use that expression, Noah. So you're not talking about something that is what's there right now. There's a deed restriction on all 5, I can't call them lots, but those different colors that represent different owned properties. Those, if that was even an appropriate way to do this, those 4 property owners would have to agree to hook up to water and sewer when it's out there. In 2007, as I read it, there was a developer who controlled all the property. Now the developer, who was a developer, controls just magenta, that's all. So you have a deed restriction on those other 4 lots would go away if you remove the deed restrictions. And those folks would have to agree to that, even if that's the appropriate way to proceed. And I'm not making that argument. I'm just saying that you're talking about 5 different landowners right now, not 1.
Aren't we being just asked to release 1 and 2 from the deed restrictions?
Yeah,
That's
why
the
can't we do
request
that?
tonight.
That's the request,
Can
right?
do that, okay.
Okay.
Is that fair to the other neighbors, the other 1, 2, 3, 4 lots that are
Why is
still
that?
under the deed restrictions where they bought into property a long time ago and have, with the knowledge that this deed restrictions are on there, and now part of their property in their neighborhood is gonna get this deed restriction taken off for them. What happens, their property values would change because, well, they're no longer in the country. Now there could be another 4 or 5 houses in that property.
25, 30 years from now.
Take the deeds, if we take the deed restrictions off.
Off of lot 1 and 2.
Yep, yeah. So I mean, I don't know how that could possibly be fair to the other neighbors.
The
who
other
bought-
neighbors
who
aren't
bought-
requesting anything.
Right, but
Yeah, they're
but
not-
it's not
yeah,
fair for
exactly.
them to have the deed restrictions taken off lot 1 and 2 as it shows here.
They could
Because-
come back and ask to take restrictions off too. We're just talking about 1 and 2 right now.
They might not
the
want
other
them
ones.
taken off.
I think that was one of the concerns, is that does it set a precedent that, right, additional property owners could come and ask for the same thing?
But what if in that map, what if they did?
Those lots big
What if
enough to
those
come
lots
in?
came in and said that we want the same thing? What would
They-
be the tragedy of that?
These would all be legal non-conforming lots. They
Well,
could
we gave
apply-
them this map. We made this map for them, didn't we? Didn't the city in Richmond
We
make this
approved
map
it.
for them?
We approved it.
And we made it. We told them this is the way it's got to be.
part of the issue you run into, and farther than Hudson, Hudson allowed a bunch of small lot development around its perimeter.
Yep.
And so then as it tried to do anything in those areas, it had to go through all of those smaller lots in order to try to do annexation, and to try to do utilities, and to try to do everything on its periphery.
So those people
I
requested
pre-
annexation?
Hold on, I presume that one of the reasons that the deed restrictions are in place here was not to allow a bunch of smaller lot development in this particular area, so that if the city wanted to expand in this direction, that it would be dealing with larger lots and fewer lot owners. That makes sense to me in terms of why it would have done that. So, here you sit with one of these that is exactly that case where that decision was made on a policy basis. The only reason I can see for this request is economic benefit, so that another lot can be sold. So the rationale wouldn't appear to be that this is good for the city, or that there's some practical planning purpose for the city to consider, because the owner wants to sell another lot separate and distinct from the whole thing. And so that's really the question from my perspective for this council is, you have an economic request versus some sort of a planning policy of keeping these lots together and keeping them larger for the city's anticipated future growth somewhere down the road, where it's easier to work with larger lots and fewer lot owners. I think those are the competing interests. Noah's done a great job at laying out some of the other issues that I do think are real issues from a zoning perspective and from an authority perspective. But when you're kind of weighing the arguments or weighing the considerations, I think you really need to think about, is there a need to maintain what your council agreed to in 2007? This was the planning approach at that time. So you're being asked to deviate from that planning approach because the property owner wants to sell one of these lots or a portion of one of the prior parcels that were linked.
I got another question then. So if there's land on either side of the four sides right now, we have no control over that because the state changed all the issues. So somebody next to them could do all this because our control is gone on that completely by the state. So if this was today, we have no control whatsoever. Correct?
If this plat was brought forward today, this doesn't meet any of the minimum lot sizes, that
I'm
this
just
plat wouldn't
saying-
be approved today.
I'm just saying.
Well,
if-
that would be from the county, right?
Correct, it would still come to us, though.
Oh, it would?
Yep.
Okay.
So I mean, we'd still review that, even though they're not our, not
They're in
necessarily
this-
our
they're in the
ordinance to
circle.
enforce, but we would still have concerns on it.
And it's really hard to speculate because you don't know what the proposal would be before the council, right? You can't exercise extraterritorial zoning, but you still have extraterritorial plat review authority, and you still have the authority to look at things like how are critical services going to service this in the future? How is transportation going to work through this area into the future? So it's less about your authority over the use, which the state has taken away, and more about the authority over, structurally, how could things work in the future, and are there issues with the plat before you? So you wouldn't have the same authority, but you would, as Noah said, you would still have the authority to look at the plat, offer comments, and make a determination as to whether it fits with the long-term plan for how you see this extraterritorial area developing into the future.
Is there an issue with critical services presently with the color scheme?
I think long-term, this is still a private drive, so it's not paved. It doesn't meet town road standard or city road standard. So especially if there's future development, how much traffic do you want on a private drive? And then, again, depending how this area would develop when it would come to emergency service vehicles, it would become at some point a jurisdictional issue of, again, is it in the city or is it the sheriff's office responding? But there's not necessarily a concern today, just with the.
City wouldn't
So-
respond for, could be years, could be a long time.
If the city, if they did request an annexation, at that time, we can say, to be annexed, you have to build that road, and you have to hook up to our city water and sewer, correct? At such time that they would, we can still require that though, right? They can't just say annex us with no road, with not a proper road and without the other stuff.
Well, just the annexation request itself wouldn't necessarily trigger that need. So for example, we have a boundary agreement with Sharp Prairie.
Prairie, correct.
So properties have, in that case, they don't even have to be contiguous to the city, right? They can ask to be attached, and but we couldn't say, well, we'll let you do that, but you've got to redo the town road.
But,
It would
well, I
really
mean,
have
like
to
But we
any
could.
housing development we have now, they have to, when they come in, they have to have roads that are approved roads, and they have to have, all hook up to the water. So we can't do that if people request to be annexed? I don't, I mean, they're not requesting that, but I'm trying to cover that. The second question I have is, okay, there's this lot from whatever, how many years, was it 18 years ago or something?
Yep.
How many of these are there that if we make this decision just to allow the developer to do this, how many other people are we gonna affect? How many other developments are we concerned about that are gonna come and say, oh, we did this 18 years ago, is there a lot of them out there, or?
That we don't know. Really, it would be going through old meeting minutes around that same time to see, what is. Otherwise, again, for a lot of our staff, we weren't here at that time. So without doing title searches on different properties in that area, we wouldn't otherwise know.
I think you make a good point, Greg, but I don't ever see this development ever coming into the city to be annexed. There's really no reason for them to do that if we remove all of the.
So, again, then, with having said that, what would be why would we not want to, why would we deny them? Why would we not release that then? Because if we don't see it, I mean, I did this afternoon drive out and look at it and stuff, and it's if we're not concerned about them ever coming in, and we can't get any information on how many other people this could affect, I mean, it seems, for me, it's okay to release these two, lots 1 and 2. It looks like, okay, if we, Nick, do you see any other major issues in here that could come back to really haunt the city? That's, I guess, my concern is there gonna be something occult out there that's gonna come back and really haunt the city if we would release these 2 lots?
I don't know that there's anything that's going to haunt the city. However, there was a planning purpose behind these restrictions, right?
Yep.
And so I have a difficult time substituting judgment now, a number of years later, when that planning purpose, when there was a specific condition that in order for this plat to be approved, it had to contain these deed restrictions. And we do this with, I can think of some other instances where we require deed restrictions in the city where lots can't be further subdivided, or further actions can't be taken, and that's because those are our rules and our conditions of approval for that particular development to be approved. And so if somebody comes back down the road and says, well, we're 15 years later, we're 20 years later, we don't think those restrictions should apply, we'd like you to remove them, I do think the council has to take a hard look at why were they imposed in the first place. Was there the real thought that the city was going to continuously expand in this direction? Maybe that's stopped. Maybe that's no longer an issue. Maybe there is no concern about the city having to get through these properties in the future. But I do think that Noah's raised a number of concerns that this does, it potentially changes the density out there. It potentially changes the overall plan and what's approved. Admittedly, I haven't spent a lot of time with those arguments. We talked about them this afternoon, but the city can't make zoning decisions or decisions that impact usage in the town. So I do think, just academically, I think those are issues that we at least need to review. But I do think those are beyond the scope of the council had a plan in place to require these lots to stay together at the time that they were approved. And now if you were to approve the request to terminate the deed restrictions, on these two properties or on these properties, you would be reversing a decision that was planned as part of the approval process previously.
So if there's no good reason 18 years ago or however long it was to put those deed restrictions on, other than we anticipate that we might be out there someday and we will need city sewer and water, that's the restriction. And as Pete just said, we don't anticipate that being next to the city.
No, I didn't say
Well,
that.
I thought that's what you meant.
Not expect, I just don't think they would want to be annexed into the city.
Yeah. So maybe if that's not a valid argument to put those deed restrictions on 20 years later, maybe just taking those 2 lots off and taking those deed restrictions off of those 2 lots would make sense.
May need them in the future. I mean, that's the other side of this. And I use the Hudson example. People say, well, why doesn't Hudson expand out to exit 4? Well, the reality is that along the south side of the interstate, there are about a dozen homes that you have to get through. They're all 2 acres or 3 acres to get out to larger land. Obviously, that's not an issue today, but could it be an issue 20 years down the road? I think what Pete said, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, was that these people they're not going to have an interest in voluntarily coming into the city. But if you need them as part of an annexation plan in the future, it's a lot easier to work with one landowner than it is to work with 2 or 3 or 4, because they could divide up their land into 1.5 acre parcels or whatever it is. It just becomes a lot more difficult. That's why cities try to control their borders as much as possible to keep them in larger land masses, so that if they're expanding in that direction, they're dealing with fewer owners. Do I know if the city's ever going to expand in this direction?
Well, none of us
I
know
don't.
that, no.
Right, but that's the reason that you try to keep larger parcels on the edges or your periphery of your
Have
city.
we ever done this before with anyone in any time that I know of?
Modified a deed?
Yeah. Well,
Modified a
or,
deed restriction?
yeah, or had maps like this that are within the city limits now. We have all kinds of islands around the city limits that we could have taken care of a long time ago that we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, islands or peninsulas around the city that are in the township, and today you'd say, well, why would they ever just voluntarily annex in? And they may never, right, unless state law changes and in the city allowed to require them to annex in. So I mean, that's one of the other concerns out here, and I think to Nick's point of, as the city grows out there, if there isn't a requirement, again, if this is allowed to develop and these houses all have a private well and septic system, there isn't necessarily anything the city can do to require it. So it may make annexation in the future more challenging. Today, again, without a boundary agreement, they have to be contiguous to the. So in the future, right, if there was property around this area that wanted to annex in, if this development was, again, if that became an island or, what was blocking that, it would be a challenge. So we do have a lot of those today, and you look at a map and you say, well, why isn't that in the city? Well,
Well, those are
nothing the
actually
city
within the
can-
city limits. I mean, there's some that are just,
But at
Crazy.
one point, that was the edge of the city, right? So, I mean, you drive on West 8th Street, right, and you say, well, why isn't there a sidewalk on the street? Well, there's some township parcels or city parcels, but years ago, right, that was farmland. That was the edge of the city. Some of those now aren't, you drive by now and it looks and feels like it's in the middle of the city, but now, because there wasn't some of that proactive planning at the time, now there's nothing the city can do. You start to kind of get these checkerboards in areas, which, again, that becomes an issue for things like emergency services. If you say, well, if you live here, it's the city. If it's your neighbor, it's the county, or who's plowing the road, or some of those things. So,
Does the Aaron Prairie Township or the county have a problem with this?
well, I think one of the concerns is that this agreement is just with the city and, in this case, the developer. And so, one of the concerns is, okay, the city doesn't have extraterritorial zoning authority. We're not allowed to independently make a zoning decision, and yet by potentially changing the agreement, that is what we are doing. This isn't necessarily being presented to the town board or the county. This is the city, in this case, is the sole decision maker. And so, if you make a change, they essentially have to live with the consequences, because don't apply to the city when it comes to building a home or putting a private well and septic. Those are going to go to the county. So it does put them in a little bit of a predicament of, okay, you have these smaller lots that were approved. They don't meet their standard today, but there's no restriction now. And so those could be sold and they could apply. Now, whether the county would approve those or not, that would be their decision.
The thing I find fascinating is we're talking about annexation. If this property was contiguous to the city of Richmond, this would be a very easy decision.
different one, yeah.
It's not. And as I read through this, the thing I don't think we're focused enough on is this paragraph, the concern about whether amending or terminating the deed restrictions indirectly impacts zoning-related matters over which the city does not have jurisdiction. So we don't have jurisdiction of the development in that land. We are, by saying, yep, go ahead and take the deed restrictions off and opening it up, and you can set this aside, but opening it up to anybody else who, even those 4 properties, say, well, you took those deed restrictions off, take mine off. We don't have a reason to say no. We are telling the township of Aaron Prairie what kind of density we are going to make them have. If I understand right, in 2007, this development could not have gotten done based on the rules that were in place at the time if the city didn't do what it did.
Right, we would have just looked at the 3-acre minimum. If they're not 3 acres, they didn't have to be approved.
Right, so now you have a situation where the rules are different. The city does not have that authority, but in essence, by removing the deed restrictions, you're saying, yeah, we do have that authority to give the township of Aaron Prairie greater density. Why does Aaron Prairie require, and I think, is it 2 acres as a minimum? I know there's an average deal, but.
Yeah, there's a minimum and an average, and really that's, again, Aaron Prairie views themselves as a rural community, and if you follow the conversations on the solar project, they really want to maintain that rural character. Courts have said rural character is not for the city to decide. That's a zoning issue. What that neighborhood looks and feels like, none of your business unless you have a boundary agreement.
So you've laid out in this paragraph the potential, if we do this, relative to state Supreme Court precedents, we could be in a legal tentative situation because in fact, we are making a zoning decision for a jurisdiction that's not ours. If this was contiguous to the city, this would be super simple. Come on in, divide it up. You can put 4 houses there. I don't know, whatever lot sizes would be. But we're being asked to make a decision that Aaron Prairie has to live with. This development isn't the way they have the whole township set up, right? We gave them the ability to do this and land that wasn't ours because we had the authority to do it. At the time, the deed restrictions were put on for a reason. Is it because the city, 2007, my thoughts have changed in terms of what people thought growth would be. But it was kind of the price to do this, if you will. And so now, if you take the deed restrictions off, we basically are making a decision about what the density is going to be in Aaron Prairie. And I want to just say this. If another governmental agency was making zoning decisions for the city of Richmond, not one of us would sit here and say, well, that's okay. But that's what we're being asked to do.
But we're only being asked to do lot 1 and 2, and that would be, what is it up to, like, when that's, they're big enough in Aaron Prairie's plat now, right? They would okay those now.
Both lot 1 and 2 are over
Yeah.
the minimum.
And that's what we're being asked to, not the other ones, which I have to agree with Mike on that, but lot 1 and 2 are within there, so we're not changing their requirements at this
But Greg,
time.
what would keep the other people who own the red, the green, the yellow, and blue to come in and say, well, you took that one off, you gotta take mine off too?
Yeah.
I think it's a
Worry about that if it ever happened.
Well, it's a precedent setting ahead of time. You can't go back and say,
Greg asked how many others were out here like this, and we don't really know, but
talking about it in
we
this
know this, and if they came in and said, take those deed restrictions off, I wouldn't have any problem with that. For those other colors,
I guess.
I would put the restriction to say that they would have to hook up to city sewer and water if they requested to be annexed,
well, they'd have to be, yeah, if they have to be.
if they
annexed, but
requested.
There'd be no reason for them.
I just want to make sure I understand though, right? What you're saying, Craig, is that Aaron Prairie says, no, we don't want this kind of density in our township. No, I'm not talking about what we're looking at today. They didn't
Okay.
ask for this either. They didn't approve this. We did. Okay? That's not, the rest of the township, you can't do this. Okay, those smaller lots, all right? But you said, well, if the other 4 colors come in, we'd just approve that too. So it's not enough that we're gonna let Aaron Prairie say, well, we're gonna allow 1 more house out there. No, we might allow 4 more houses out there because we really don't have a basis to say no to anybody else. And in fact, the thing that you ask a valid question, okay, how many others do we have? We don't know.
I don't know.
But if we have any others, what is the basis to say no? There is no overarching reason to deny anybody. I mean, that's the reality. And so you would have to live with that decision. So again, we're telling Aaron Prairie, you don't want this kind of development in your township, but the city made it possible. And now we're going to make it be even more dense by removing the only controls that exist there.
Possibility.
Yeah, but there's not a.
Don't know that.
You're right. The county has to approve it.
Yep.
But again, that's the thing that's important to me. Annexation, if this property was ready to be annexed, we'd be done talking about this by now. And I agree that it's long time. In fact, beyond lifetimes of the youngest person in this room, perhaps.
Probably.
So that's what I see as the issue is it isn't just this chunk of land. Yeah, you can say we're talking about it, but the reality is anytime you deviate from what the written agreement was, you have to be able to use that argument against somebody else who comes in.
This was 18 years ago. Do we know how the township feels about this now? I mean, do we get any input from the township? Are they against this? I mean, we're talking,
Or the county.
or the county, are they against it? Does you guys want to, anybody, if you want to speak, come up here.
Yeah, so again, this item doesn't go to the town board, the
But
county
we're talking
board.
right now, Mike brought it up. We're supposed to watch a township so they don't have growth. Let's find out what the township wants.
Right, and so if the
Don't do all
town
the
and the,
technicalities, but
yeah, in order to have such negotiations, there would actually be a boundary agreement to say we're going to actually, right?
No, I'm
if
just
the-
saying
If
ask
the
them a
township
question.
wanted to allow the city to influence those zoning decisions, we would, again, which is the intent that you're working collaboratively with them. But it's not just a one-off of, well, put this on the town board agenda, if they're good with it, then it's approved. You'd have to have a formal,
But that's the issue right now. We're saying that, the town board didn't want growth. Well, now let's find out if they have a problem with this here. That's the issue that I see. We're saying that. And let's find out from the town board if they have an issue with it.
And Mr. Mayor, I just want to add this. If they wanted this kind of development, that's what you'd see in the township, but they don't. 2-acre lots, that's the rule today. 2-acre lots.
What are those lots?
They're both over 2 acres, though. One and
Those two are.
Yeah.
But all
That-
the other
that's what I'm saying.
colors, all the other colors are not.
No, they aren't even close. The other ones are
Right.
0.5. I looked at the thing. But again, the only thing we're looking at is 1 and 2. So for me, that's the question.
Robin?
Robin Hafner, 1704, 156. The magenta or purple is my property. A little bit of, Noah did a great job with background. The other 3 lots, if you take a deed restriction off, cannot actually sell parts of their property because they're under the 1.75 or 1.5 for the county and for Aaron Prairie on the average. I talked to the town chairman and the town road supervisor, and they're okay with this. This has already went through the city. The city approved it, and the county approved this new CSM. The reason that I did this is I'm selling my house. I'm moving out of the area. My lot, from the realtor standpoint, was too large. My value of my house would have been too much. So what I did is I cut off the 2-acre lot and sold a 5.5-acre lot with my house. I sit right on top of the willow, right in the middle of all the white stuff around the back is all state land. I wanted to keep the price down so I could sell it. Lot 2, the people that bought the house have first option to buy. Lot 2, I don't plan on developing it. That's my opinion. I own right now both of them until Ellen's hopefully buy this. But nobody else, if you take the deed restriction off for me, there's nobody else that could do anything with deed restrictions in that subdivision because their lots are too small. Talking with the county, I was one of the only that they could find, only one that has deed restrictions on my property because I was one of the first properties to do the extraterritorial area when we first got the rule that you could do it. Bob Barbian is the one that drew this up. Bob Barbian was the planner for the city at that time. If you look at it, it's like a puzzle piece. My goal at that time was to do 2 or 3-acre lots. And back then it was 3-acre minimum with an average lot. So it could have went down. Mine was 7 acres. Everybody else is, I think Mergen's is the green one. They're just over 2. Everybody else is about 1.5 acres or 1.75 acres to 1.9. I have over 7 acres there. That's the big reason I cut it down. But I'm just trying to sell it at a reasonable price. And I have an offer on a guy's moving into town with a big family. He's going to work at the school. And we're hoping this will go through so I can close and move. There is no reason that I can make more money by selling that lot. It wasn't. It was just to try to get the value under so much money that I could sell it fast. When I came to the city in, I think it was February, and asked about doing this, splitting it off, because what Barbian actually calls all these lots are ghost lots. There's no place else in the St. Croix County that has ghost lots. The city didn't like it. When Noah was the planner, he didn't like it, and I don't want to speak for him. He can answer for himself, but the ghost lots just don't make any sense. There are lots within a lot, but you can cross them, do anything you want, except for you can't cross it with a house. I think that's it. The driveways can cross them, sewers can cross them, all that. So I wanted to clear up, I got a stack of paper with my taxes like this from Aaron Prairie. 7 pieces. I wanted to split it up to make it easier for the new homeowner and for me if I was going to stay, which I'm not. But that's the reason I did it. And I'll answer any questions that I can think of. As for the deed restriction, I found out, I think, shortly after Noah did, because 17 years ago or 18 years ago, I can't remember, a month ago. But I didn't remember the deed restriction. If you look on the piece of paper that says on there, I wrote, that's my handwriting that says Barbian drafted this. Because I didn't agree with these little lots. I didn't agree with it at the time. But at the time, if you look at, go to Aaron Prairie Council, they can pull up minutes, they approved that. They approved those small lots with the city at the same time. So nothing against Mr. Montello, but the city did agree to this, or not the city, that Aaron Prairie did agree to this. Aaron Prairie also verbally agreed to me splitting it up, taking out the ghost lots. It's less paper for them, and making this that the city already approved in the first part of March. I think it's in your paperwork. And the county gave a new CSM because the city approved, the township's okay with it, and they gave me a new CSM for it. We'll answer any questions if anybody has any.
I'm a little confused. You said you got a new CSM from the city and the county,
Correct.
even though these restrictions were on there?
Correct.
Wouldn't the county have picked up on the deed restrictions? Shouldn't they have?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only way we found out is my title company, or not my title company, but title company I use in town, found it, let Noah know it, and I don't remember if Noah told me or if the title company told me about the deed restriction, and I was surprised. I didn't remember it at all. And that's, me and Noah had some good email back and forth, and that was a long time ago.
I don't think I would remember 18 years ago either, so I'm not blaming you at all for that.
So, so it's already been cut up, proved. I'm trying to think of what I can do, or I can't go backwards. I already talked to the county. I can't go back to where it was. I'm trying to think of if there's something else I can do. I'm just trying to sell. And like I said, Lot 2, their realtors here, Carrie, that they'll have first option to buy. Right now, it would have cost land, if you look around the township, any township around Richmond, a couple acres of land is worth a lot of money. I took that off the total price and, made it a cheaper, less expensive, not cheaper, I guess would be the right way to say it.
If I understand you correctly, did you just say the township has verbally agreed to this?
I talked to.
No, is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay, so just for the record, you're a businessman, right?
yes.
Verbal contract not worth
Right,
the
I
paper
agree.
it's printed on. So I'll tell you what, I'm not going to support this until we got some hard agreements from these authorities, these agencies. I'm not going on anybody's word. If the town of Aaron Prairie wants to have a border agreement with us, that's the right way to handle this. Not based on, well, he said, then this, and then that. No. So.
But to answer your question, the city already approved it and the county already approved it.
For you to remove the deed restrictions?
No, I didn't
Well,
say
that's
that.
what we're talking about.
I didn't say, I said to change the CSM. I didn't say nothing about deed restrictions. I didn't know about them.
Or you want to say anything?
I'm with Remax, represent the buyer on this, Carrie Paulson from Remax. So the buyers, we did see the CSM with the broken up lots of Lot 1 and Lot 2. So we're always under the impression that Lot 1 was the house, Lot 2 was extra. The title company, as Robin said, just noted it. I think like the third week in July. We were supposed to close on this property July 28th. The husband is teaching at the middle school here in Richmond and coaching basketball and staying at a hotel until we can get this together. So hoping tonight was get approved and then we could close on it Wednesday. So.
Further discussion, there's a motion on the floor right now, and second.
Mr. Mayor, can you just have her read back the motion?
Yeah. Motion is to deny the motion, or to deny the request.
Correct.
Okay.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Oh.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
No.
Alderman Vries,
Yes.
Only thing, you could come back again if you get I think the township to get it written, you can come back and request again. Closest one would be our work session.
Just for the record, I'm all for that. What I really struggle with is the loose way that things have been done relative to property, and we talked about that earlier, how we've got these pockets that shouldn't be there. And while that isn't Mr. Hafner's fault at all, we should have a development agreement with the Township of Aaron Prairie. We absolutely should. And hopefully this will serve as impetus to get something done. So, you know what? Just for the record, Robin, I hope you're successful getting your house sold. I really am. There's a bigger issue at play here that we need to get fixed.
So you can come back at a work session in 2 weeks, but you have to have something written from the township approving this, because you said that the city with the CSM and the county are okay with it, but we're talking about Aaron Prairie Township. Are they okay with that? If they're okay with it, I personally don't see where there's an issue.
It's a lot less of one for me.
Yes, that's the only way it's gonna work right now. You'd have to come back again. Yeah, 2 weeks. What's the date of our work session?
25th, I think is work session.
25th. That's the motion right now, so you'd have to come back again. And I think that's the way to do it, is get the township to approve it. Everything else is approved the way it sounds. Township doesn't want these small lots. That's where we are right now, okay? Next item, zoning application, City of New Richmond, PID 261-1070-44-060.
So this item was recently reviewed by the Planning Commission. This is in regards to a 23-acre parcel in the Business and Technical Park. This is north of West Richmond Way, between Cernhouse Avenue and St. Croix Avenue. Currently, this property has a Z3 zoning designation. The request is to change it to a Z7 industrial zoning designation, which is consistent with our comprehensive plan, which was updated a few years ago in terms of the future land use map for this area. So this zoning requests are not specific to particular developments. It's really looking long-term. What does the city council want to see developed here in the future? So included in the packet, you can see the future land use map. This is kind of that transition where you've got more commercial uses to the east, and then as you go north and northwest, you have more of the industrial designation. So again, years ago, the plan for this whole area was industrial, and some of that changed to more commercial with Walmart and some of the fast food restaurants. And so currently this has a Z3 zoning designation. I think years ago there may have been an idea that a big box store was going to come, and I'm really looking at available industrial land in the city to have a 23-acre parcel piece is valuable. And so the recommendation from the Plan Commission was to change it from Z3 to Z7, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the rezoning application with no conditions.
Second.
Questions? Not take the roll, please.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Vries,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, Ordinance 627, zoning text amendment to repeal Evergreen Valley PUD.
So the city of Richmond has several planned unit developments, or PUDs, Essentially, these are more restrictive covenants or different regulations outside of our typical zoning ordinance. And so as we've been working with developer looking at some undeveloped property in this area, the question arose in terms of well, what rules are we following, right? Is it the PUD requirements? Is it the city zoning ordinance? And again, our current zoning ordinance has a lot of things that are different than what it was in 2003 when this plan unit development was put in place. And so when we reviewed, here's what the PUD would require, here's what the zoning ordinance requires, we felt that it made sense in this case, not just to change the PUD, but to eliminate it altogether. That way that not just this undeveloped parcel, but all the existing homes there are just following our standard zoning ordinance. So the recommendation from the Plan Commission was to approve this ordinance 627 to repeal the Evergreen Valley PUD. Happy to answer any questions that you might have on it.
I'll offer that motion.
Second.
Sorry, let me.
No discussion? Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I think, this area to the east was considered our industrial land, and then we started making some zoning changes to really keep everything along West Richmond way more commercial. The surrounding area is all residential. Breaking down our doors, trying to build commercial property along here, so I guess in light of that, I guess I would be in favor of.
Are we talking about the Evergreen Valley PUD?
Yeah, anything else? Take the roll, please.
Alderman Volkert? Alderman Montello?
Yes.
Alderman Kittle?
Yes.
Alderman Breeze?
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier?
Yes.
Alderman Gartner?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, bid results in Richmond Community Library Facilities, furniture, excuse me.
So earlier this summer, the city council authorized staff to solicit bids for the furniture for the new library. The bid deadline was July 29th. Included in the packet is the full bid tabulation. Something kind of unique with how we solicit bids for furniture is that you'll see vendors had the opportunity to bid or to not bid on various components of the project, from different tables, different chairs. And so unlike bids for a vehicle or a road project where you just have one bidder that gets the whole thing, in this case, actually all 4 vendors had the low bid on at least a portion of the project. And so the recommendation would actually be to award contracts to the 4 vendors listed in the memo. And that is Acre in the amount of $34,294, Continua Interiors in the amount of $75,818.72, Alternative Business Furniture in the amount of $233,940.29, and Henriksen PSG in the amount of $165,107.42. These bids include the furniture, the freight and delivery, as well as all the installation. So these pieces of furniture don't just arrive here at City Hall. These companies actually do all the assembly in the new building when we're at that point.
Again, state what we had in the library project. Was it $750,000?
Yeah, so in terms of our budget, were conservative and had factored in a larger amount, so these were favorable to budget, which was good. We weren't sure, of course, with tariffs and different changes in the market, and so it was good to see that these were competitive. And actually, when you look through the bid tab, you'll see in a lot of cases, the cost per chair, cost per table is quite close between a lot of them. So we feel that they were competitive, and it was good that we had a lot of interest in the project.
$40,000 less than we projected.
So no, under the recommendation, it says consultant ISG recommends. Can we add to that and staff as well?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
I make a motion that we approve the bids as they're laid out in the memo.
I'll second.
Discussion. Not take the roll, please.
Alderman Montello?
Yes.
Alderman Kittle?
Yes.
Alderman Vries.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Gartner.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert.
Passes. Next item, Asbestos Abatement, 2032 County CC.
Earlier this year, the city council authorized staff to engage with a consultant to do asbestos sampling as well as identify other hazardous materials at the property at 2032 County Road Double C. If you recall, this property was acquired over a decade ago and actually involving litigation with the airport. And so the city has owned this property for quite some time. The house has been used for many years by the SWAT team, by the fire department for training. The barn, which at one point was still standing, has since been caving in, and both buildings are really in disrepair. And so earlier this summer, samples were taken, those get sent to a laboratory. We get a full report from the consultant specifying what was all found, not just in terms of asbestos, but other things that cannot just be disposed of through, just, hey, put it in the trash, right? And so we then took that report, sent that to 5 different contractors. Obviously, when you're dealing with asbestos, you have to be certified by the state. We reached out to 5 different vendors. 2 of them responded and also took time to go out to the property, take photos, verify what they were seeing in terms of the report from the consultant, and provided bids. And so you'll see there were 2 quotes, one from Dirty Ducks Cleaning and Environmental, and the other from Hummingbird Environmental LLC. The low bid was from Hummingbird Environmental in the amount of $13,500. If that were approved tonight by the council, they would do that abatement work here in the next few months with the intention that the fire department would do a training burn of both buildings late fall, early winter time. Now, there would still be some additional things that have to be done before we can burn it in terms of relocating some electrical services. At some point, we'd have to look at backfilling, or again, there's an old silo and things that would have to be addressed. But really, we felt this addresses the most critical concerns, potential liability to the city if kids were up there or something caved in on someone. The house itself, the door doesn't even close. You could walk right in there right now if you wanted to. So, but both have really they're great for training purposes, but both have certainly seen better days, and we feel it's best to address them.
Mr. Mayor, I'll offer a motion that we award the abatement work to contractor Hummingbird Environmental in the low bid amount of $13,500 and get that house torn down.
Second.
Further discussion?
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Alderman Vries.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Gartner.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert. Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Motion passes. Residential Recycling Services Contract Amendment.
The city contracts with Waste Management for our curbside residential recycling. That contract is for 5 years. It runs through the end of the calendar year for 2028. Waste Management serves a lot of municipalities in our area and has been changing some of their schedules, due in part to growth in the area, but also just changes in terms of availability of drivers, trying to, how can they reduce some of their fuel costs and trips. And so recently, a lot of residents in the community received notification from Waste Management that these changes were going to be going into effect. They had not communicated that with the city, and that formally has to be approved by the city as part of our contract with them. Included in the packet, you'll see is a map on the 3rd page. Currently, in terms of our pickups, the city is just split using Knowles Avenue. And so the east side of the city is picked up on one week, and then alternating would be the west side. Waste Management is looking to combine their recycling services, which is our contract, with their pickup days for property owners who they contract with separately for garbage. And so they really feel that on, what they see as one of the benefits for those customers, that instead of, hey, your recycling gets picked up on Monday, but your trash gets picked up on Thursday, they would now have them picked up on the same day. It does complicate the map a little more. There's that simplicity right now to just say if you're on the east side of Knowles or the west side of Knowles. So as you see on the map, you've got, in this case, yellow and green areas. And one of the larger changes would be actually more for the southeast portion of the city. Instead of Mondays, they would be, I'm doing pickup there on Fridays. So that would be one of the larger changes. So the Waste Management has already, started communicating this to residents. Again, based on the contract, they should have provided a 90-day notice period. They did not do that. I know there have been some concerns with some of our neighboring communities as well, where they feel this is just kind of forced upon them. At the same time, when it comes to these changes, if we're also not necessarily, determining what their best route is, or understanding necessarily all of their needs as to the reasons behind it. And obviously, not just for in Richmond, but what they're doing in another community has an impact on us. So if it's taking longer to do pickup in one of the neighboring communities, that has a ripple effect on every other community around us. So while they're looking at doing this change today, it also is not to say that a year from now they want to make another change. Again, just based on continued growth in this area, or if they get a contract or lose a contract with one of the other municipalities. So we notify them that this would have to be formally approved by the city. And so happy to answer questions you might have on this, or if there's anything that I can answer, if there's anything you'd like me to follow up with Waste Management on directly, I can do so.
Sorry, go ahead.
So in essence, Waste Management changed their schedule with people they didn't really contract with. Because they changed, I got a notice, everything was fine, it didn't matter to me when they pick it up, but they don't have a contract with me, they have a contract with the city.
Right. Right, and we learned of it because we were getting calls or
Yeah.
emails from residents. Yeah.
So the question for me is, this benefits Waste Management. And what's the get? And I will tell you, with Waste Management, if you want to talk about one complaint that you will hear, is when people want to cancel with them.
Rid of them.
You got to pay. And what's really frustrating about that is that many folks in the city were adopted by Waste Management because Stevens, if I got this right, Waste Management bought Stevens, so you were a Stevens customer. Now you're a Waste Management customer. If somebody said, well, no, I want to go with somebody else, okay, well, you're going to pay us to leave us. I've heard that complaint issued, folks have, in fact, approached the city as saying, hey, what can you do to help me? It seems to me that Waste Management owes us something. I don't have a problem with what they want to do. This is better for them. To Craig's point, it doesn't make any difference to a lot of people, it's just a new routine. But this is better for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And don't the folks that are Waste Management customers deserve a little relief if they want to change haulers?
I would guess that's a separate subject, but better communication with Waste Management probably is something that the city would like, their customers would like. I'm sure if you ask Waste Management, they would want that also. I stayed with Waste Management. I've never had an issue. I've never tried to leave, so.
Well, to Greg's point, good luck leaving. And I'm not, whatever, but I'm just saying that it's frustrating.
I know,
To
I get
cancel
that.
a service, you got to pay, and so I think.
Maybe a separate issue than this.
Yeah, but I do think the ask should be there. I don't have any problems with the change. Although, and I just saw, I don't know, the city's got something posted on social media about this. And I was reading the comments and somebody said, well, they haven't picked up my recycling for 2 days or whatever. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but it does put the city in a position of fielding those calls. And you do get them.
We do.
So I'd sure like to have a better understanding of their communication, like you said, with the folks that are here.
I would make a motion to approve this change of dates on pickup dates.
I'll second that.
All I can say is that when our next contract comes up, the issues that Mike's talking about should be addressed right there. Because if you're with somebody you want to leave and they charge you for leaving, it's ridiculous. So I think the city should address that. I know it's not for a couple of years, but that is an issue because I've heard it a lot too.
And I have too. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's page 2. They just asked for page 1, so.
Anything else?
I wouldn't think so. They weren't
Contract.
asking for that, and it's really not you know,
Not
in
really
their
breaking
ask.
their contract per se, because they're still giving that service. But like they said, they didn't notify the city at all, and then they called the city then. It's like it's our fault, but.
They notified their customers, but they didn't notify the city. And their customers don't have the contract. The city has the contract.
I got a card in the mail before
I did too.
this happened, I mean, before it changed, but a lot of people didn't, because everybody had it out on the wrong day then.
I got the card the day that it happened.
Well, I will tell you that I was not notified. They pick up my recyclables, but I have a different hauler for my garbage, and I was never notified, still haven't been notified. So if you aren't a customer of theirs on the garbage side, you have no communication with them because they don't have a contract with me, they have a contract with the city. So they need to communicate with the city on their recyclable pickups.
That's why we're doing this.
Like Noah said, it's supposed to be 90 days.
Yeah.
That never happened. So, I mean, next contract, there should be a penalty too. I mean, for the problems they cause the city, customers, it shouldn't be working that way. I know they're a big company and they think they can do what they want, but that's not the way it works. Any other questions?
Well, we're a big city too, and we can do whatever we want. We can say you're not allowed in Richmond. I mean, we can have a contract with somebody else for recycling. There's all kinds of things we can do. We're a city too.
Well, we go by price if you want to pay more, I guess. But that's another issue because this contract is lasting a few more years.
Stan?
Anything else?
No.
Alderman Vries,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, adaptive management plan services for 2025.
So in 2023, work started on our adaptive management planning. So we have a 5-year permit through the state for our wastewater treatment plant. As our community continues to grow and as, again, the various state regulations change, we have to meet different criteria when it comes to phosphorus in the Willow River. And if you recall, we decided to pursue with an adaptive management plan versus upgrades to our plant. And so we went through a competitive selection process at that time. We selected SCH as our consultant. So while they were selected to work with us over the 5-year duration of the agreement, each year they bring forward a 1-year contract at a time, depending on what their scope of work is going to be entailing for the upcoming year. And so included in your packet is the proposal from SCH. This is in the amount of $49,800. And this is actually for the work that they've been doing this summer, and then it continues into next spring. So next year you would see an additional proposal from them for year 4 of the 5-year permit. So this was reviewed at the Utility Commission at their last meeting. They recommended approval of the proposal from SCH. Again, at this time, a lot of the work is really focused more on the planning and testing side. We aren't yet at a point of implementation. That would really be our next 5-year permit. So with the adaptive management route, we really get up to 20 years to address some of these things. And so a lot of this right now is doing testing and sampling at different points in the Willow River. Is looking at, if you worked with this farmer, or if you dredged the widespread at Mary Park, how much phosphorus would you actually reduce? If we changed our street sweeping practices, if we changed our leaf pickup in the fall, what is that baseline data? How much phosphorus is attributable to those things? And then if you were to change those, right, or implement a certain, let's say it's working with a farmer, for example, upstream to plant a buffer along or to do a shoreline restoration project, how much phosphorus is that actually, what's the impact in terms of the Willow River? So a lot of this work at this point isn't yet those specific projects. It's really a lot of that background research, getting that baseline data, diving deeper into some of these potential solutions so that at the end of this 5-year permit, we can say to the DNR, here's the actual things now that we're going to implement, and here's how much phosphorus we think that's going to positively impact the Willow River.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve the agreement with SEH in the amount of $49,800 for 2025.
I'll second.
One
I-
thing,
I do, but go ahead, Mike, you go first.
because of the size of New Richmond, did we recently, I don't know if it's going over 10,000, we have a greater responsibility for downstream, and I don't know if it's just phosphorus, heavy metals, whatever. Did I understand that right? That we have a greater responsibility for what's in the river that maybe we didn't generate?
You know, the state is really using the permits for wastewater treatment plants, not just in Richmond, but across the state, as a mechanism to improve water quality, even though it may be things that are attributable, you know, upstream, right? So, the example I've given folks is sometimes I think of in the spring, if the widespread or the mill pond, if the fountain isn't on, there's times it looks like chocolate milk, right? You have no movement. We're responsible now downstream to, even though we're not necessarily the ones causing those issues, we either have to do things at our wastewater treatment plant, which again doesn't necessarily address some of these other issues, but we're going to say it's cheaper for the city to address some of these things that working with landowners or addressing other things versus trying to spend millions of dollars at the wastewater plant. So you could argue it maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense to use that. You'd think that, you know, the state would be working with those, maybe more of the causers of some of those issues, but they're able to use this to force the municipalities to now work with those property owners kind of in the best interest that the state wants to achieve.
Well, it's interesting.
Kind of unfunded mandate.
Yeah, there it is. But it's an unfunded mandate for the people who use a sanitary septic system, sewer system. So everybody who's hooked up and is paying a bill is paying for what's coming downstream. And I can appreciate that it's a problem, but it is interesting that the state has chosen to say, hey, municipality, that's your baby now. Everything that comes to you, we're making you responsible for.
Yeah, so, you know, phosphorus that's in the Willow River from the town of Stanton, town of Aaron Prairie, it's, hey, city, this is your wastewater plant, your permit. You find a way to make the river cleaner, even though it may not be because of what we're doing at the wastewater plant, so.
Have control over the DNR in this situation. You know what I mean? Because they have to approve this then too, the state legislature.
Yeah, I mean, anytime some of these thresholds are set, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth and politics involved in that, whether it be at the state level, whether it be EPA requirements. Right, PFAS requirements have been a hot button topic. In some cases, the federal government says one thing, the state government says something else. So it also isn't to say that in the coming years that some of these regulations may change again, either less restrictive or more restrictive.
Because I know that what comes out of our sewage treatment plant is a lot cleaner than what comes in. I mean, and from the river. We're putting clean stuff back in, and like you said, it's not us, it's the people upriver that are creating the problems. But we're paying for it, which doesn't make any sense.
I just want the record to show that our city administrator, utilities director said, who knows, in the future, maybe the requirements will be less. Want the record to show that you said that.
Elections have consequences.
Mike, do you believe that? Probably not.
I think my comments were to the same thing, that we're responsible for a lot of other issues that we have not really control. We will have control because instead of spending millions and millions of dollars on our sewer plant to try and reduce this, it's cheaper for us to go upstream working with different properties to try and get them less polluting into the river with phosphorus. I think that's not only farmers, but that's like all the septic systems that are running along the Willow River that are coming into our system through the Willow River that we have additional rural subdivisions that are septic systems. There is the possibility that some of that stuff leaches, whether it's the septic system or whether they're putting phosphorus on their grass for growth, that all adds to the river, and we're ultimately responsible for it.
We were working with the townships a number of years ago, and the landowners try to help remedy this,
Isn't that part of what SEH does for the $49,000?
So in the future, if we decided to choose one of those projects, they would be involved
Right.
with that.
Yeah.
So that isn't the scope at this time, but yeah, it's really looking at those private landowners, how much, right, phosphorus could be attributable to that.
Yeah. That's part of what the $49,000 gets you.
Any other questions? Not take the roll, please.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Gartner,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert, Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Breeze.
Yes.
Passes. Next item, second quarter 25 financial report.
Mayor and council. So this evening, the full report is in the packet. I'm just going to draw some highlights out from a revenue and expenditure perspective. So total revenues that have been received through June 30th is just under 5.7 million of our total budget of 9.6, or 59% of our budget has been collected through that second quarter. If you want to go to the slides, Michelle. Close to the end. So as you can tell, property taxes are the largest contributor of our source of revenue as a city. And so as of the end of the quarter, $3.7 million of our total, just under 5.8 million, was collected, or 64%, which is pretty consistent with our 5-year average of collections for that first half of property taxes. We also collected $31,128 in room taxes, or 24% of our budget. That does represent just 1 quarter of room tax collections due to the timing of reporting and then collection. So second quarter is actually not collected until the end of July. And that does represent about a 17.8% increase from prior year. From an intergovernmental perspective, we receive our full personal property aid from the state through second quarter, which is just under $127,000. We received an urban forestry grant that helps assist with the emerald ash borer removal, or ash tree removal. That was $25,000. We continue to see favorable interest earnings of $233,000, so we're exceeding budget. There, we had budgeted $180,000, so we're at 129% of budget mid-year. So we anticipate that that will continue at least through third quarter and into fourth. Building permit fees also is an increase from prior year, about 26% of an increase. So we've collected $190,000 through June 30th. Airport hangar leases, due to continued growth at the airport, was an increase of 4% compared to last year. So total lease revenue that was collected was $111,000.
That doesn't count the increase in the leasing rate?
That does.
Does?
That includes the new lease rate, correct. Those were our main drivers for second quarter. Any questions on revenue?
Sorry, what was the question? The airport hangar leases, my understanding was a new rate didn't go into effect until next year. So
That's
it's
what I
not,
thought.
it's not the new rate.
Shouldn't be.
You're correct, sorry. So, yeah, that would be in effect the following July.
Yep.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, since you caught your breath, do you have any idea what you talked about building fees, permits? You said through the end of June, which probably didn't include, in essence, anything from the hailstorm. We have a sense of what's been generated.
I do.
And even if you just said July, and I realize you're only talking about the first half of the year, but I am curious.
I don't know those off the top of my head, but I do have the comparison. So in July, which is where we're seeing a good bulk of those storm fees, we had 180 permits issued in July, which is going to encompass your roofing, siding, any type of that. Total permit fees for just July that were collected was $209,000. So we will, in just July, we exceeded where we were at halfway through the year.
Yeah, most of that is beyond the budget for building fees.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Most of that, a lot of that hasn't started yet.
Yeah, mine's done, but I think just the fact that I think the contractors, and I know this isn't your thing, Rand, but I think the contractors wait to get the permits usually until shortly before they do the work.
Looking at the hailstorm we had in 2017, I mean, yes, you see a big push in July, but we're going to see higher numbers.
For a
going all the
number
way
of
into the-
months.
Yeah.
The storm in 2017, we saw some of that trickle over into the following year even, just because of people were working through insurance and that type of claim, and then when the work was actually scheduled. So we do anticipate to see. From an expenditure perspective, when we look at expenditures again, kind of midway through the year, we would anticipate total expenditures to budget to be around that 50% mark. We're trending slightly under at 47%. So our total expenditures were just over 4.5 million and our budget is 9.6. Some of the variance that we see in this first half of the year is because of some expenses that are incurred fully in the first half of the year, and then we start to see a smoothing out of those expenses throughout the year. So one of those would be our annual ambulance expenses, our library system, being a partner or a member of the IFLS library system, that maintenance and support is pre-funded at the beginning of the year. We also have several software contracts that we're paying for city operations. So for our financial software, our website, our alert notifications for Alert Richmond, our codification software, all of those things are incurred half of the year. So in networking and things of that nature, we're seeing a spike kind of in that first half, but then again, they kind of just balance out and hit budget by the end of the year once those things items that are outside of kind of those preloaded type of expenses on the first of the year. We had some traffic control expenses that will remain a variance through the year. So that was for repairs on Knowles and 6th Street. Those were actually an insurance proceeds that came in at the end of 2024. We carried those forward. They'll be appropriated back into the budget when we bring budget amendments. So although the expenditure is tracking high right now, there are offsetting insurance recoveries that will be brought into the budget as well. We've also seen a few more insurance claims in 2026 for some damage to property. So those repairs for police vehicles was about $13,000, but are recoupable underneath those insurance recoveries. And then we also had the restoration work, $22,000 for the Mary Park sign. Again, that was recovered through insurance recoveries and will be appropriated into the budget. Questions on expenditures?
What was snow removal? I can't see that far.
Snow and ice removal, so that is kind of an impact of first quarter where we had more snow events, and so
9,000.
additional,
Okay.
yeah, 69,000. So we had additional
Last year was
salaries and wages.
About the same?
In 2024, first quarter, I believe we didn't have much for snow and ice removal, and that year I think it was a pretty light winter.
Yeah, those last 2 years we really have, should
And
be
then
way
we
below.
have a salt contract, and so in the second quarter, we didn't fully expend all of the pounds of salt that we are earmarked, so we're required to take those.
Oh.
And so that was an additional expense that was incurred in second half as well.
Again, in the month of July, to that question, we are going to have some brush removal expense.
Correct, right. So as Mike mentioned, Alderman Montello mentioned, we've had significant amount of man hours in regards to cleanup associated with the July 28th storm. There are some avenues that we will be seeking to potentially offset some of those expenses that we've incurred due to that storm. There's also damage to property that we've identified and filed an insurance claim and are working through the city's insurance to cover those damages. So we had not just only the June claim and then, a month later, some additional claim too on the July
So you have
storm,
filed
so-
for the grandstands at Citizens Field?
Yep.
Okay, and the bleachers?
Yes, which they were already part of, well, the bleachers were already part of our June claim from the hail, because there was hail damage on them. They are also part of the July claim due to grandstand being on top of the bleachers, so,
Okay.
yes.
They took the grandstand off and laid it in front of the, by the hockey doors,
Roof or
the
whatever.
roof. But the bleachers haven't been moved yet.
Park, is that done?
Yep. Oh, the top, is the top on?
The pillars are complete, but the signage, the metal signage on that is not adhered yet. No, that is not complete.
What's the estimated time on that? I thought that was done first.
They do the columns so that then when they fit up the signage, that the columns haven't moved when they were
Oh, I see.
essentially reconstructing those.
So they're
right-
done, it's just not installed yet.
Correct, and then there was some tweaking on the sign. So I think the frame itself, the signage, is taking a little bit longer than was initially anticipated. Questions on expenditures?
How do you think we're doing on our budget for the first half of the year?
I think that we're, from the first half of the year, I think we're trending exactly where I would want to see us. I think some of the storm damage that we've seen is certainly going to cause some variances. And so over the course of the next couple of weeks here, we'll have a better understanding of exactly what that variance looks like. And then also working through just some of the potential recovery funds that we might have. We can provide a report to the council too on just kind of specifically storm damage, if you would like to see that prior to the third quarter coming out.
Thank you for keeping an eye on this.
I think we're doing well though, so, having increased building permit fees and interest, so some of those variances that we are seeing are being fully covered right now outside of even exploring other avenues that we could help offset some of those storm damage costs.
Thank you.
From our debt obligations in 2025, our total general obligations, so this isn't taking into consideration revenue debt that's issued by our utility, but total payments for a general obligation is just over $2.9 million. Through second quarter, we have $893,000 paid. At the end of each year is when we look at our debt outstanding, which is at just under 23 million. A reason for the increase when you look at 23 to 24 is that in 24, we did issue $7.5 million in general obligation debt. And again, that was issued for a 3-year period. So it covered capital improvement projects from 23, 24, and the projects that we are currently underway in 2025. That did hold open some capacity for us in 2025 so that we could address the debt issuance for the construction of the new library. So earlier this year in April, we did issue that community development revenue lease bonds of $10 million. Those won't count against the general obligation outstanding of the city, but we certainly will continue to report on principal and interest payments and how those tie into the budget moving forward. And then on the bottom, we just kind of like to highlight where exactly debt payments come from. So 63% of what we are paying in debt is actually coming from taxes that we are levying to our residents. 3% is being paid through our tax increment districts. Again, that number has kind of been going down as we've been closing our tax increment districts, and with the debt that the tax increment districts have taken out has been retired. And then 34% is paid by other sources, mainly our water, sewer, electric, and stormwater utilities. That is all that I have this evening for you, so no action is required on this. It's for communication and update purposes. We will post this to the finance web page.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any communication or miscellaneous?
I just want to extend my thanks and gratitude to, I think predominantly the Public Works Department, but I think it's probably more than that, city staff for the work they've done in the light of that storm. You know, it's interesting, and reading the comments on social media, which I don't always do, but I did, and they are like 99% positive. And it definitely is a testament to the attitude of those individuals that work for the city in Richmond, folks stepping in and helping in areas that they aren't necessarily like immediately charged with. But it's just been awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Else?
I have two quick things. I
Good,
was
you're
gonna,
beat me to it, aren't you?
oh,
Your
Pete,
third.
are we gonna say the same thing? You go first.
Oh, no, you go right ahead.
I wanted to say thank you to all the emergency services for making National Night Out last week a really great night. We had great attendance at Mary Park and throughout all the neighborhoods, so that was great to be a part of. And then also, Alert New Richmond has been super important in the time of all these storms. It's a really great communication device, so if you aren't signed up for Alert New Richmond, please reach out. City staff is happy to help you, or there's a link right on our website. That was it. Did I take yours, Pete?
A little bit, that's all right.
Okay.
We had a national night out in our neighborhood, and it was awesome, again. A lot of people show up. Great to have the police there, the EMS, the fire, the kids in the neighborhood, absolutely love it. First thing they wanted to do, everybody running up, put the handcuffs on me. Don't get started, son. No, but we had a great time.
Else? Not to have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.